Star Trek 57, M23, take 2.
Star Trek podcast.
So, I have been weighing the morality of something. These new changelings, whether they've evolved or found some other means of replicating our physiology, it makes them unique. Perhaps there's a way we can exploit that uniqueness.
You mean fashion a weapon against them?
Yes, or at the very least a tool to identify and root them out.
So what's your moral dilemma?
The solution may be biological, and targeting a species on biology alone is tantamount to genocide.
Like the virus used against them in the Dominion War.
Exactly. I know we're desperate, but I am concerned about crossing a line.
Well, see what you can find. We'll weigh the morality if and when this becomes actual.
Okay. All right. Yes. Let's get moving here. Let's do this. This is the It's Got Star Trek podcast. Getting right into it this week, right, guys?
Right into it.
Getting right into it. The It's Got Star Trek podcast, episode number 178.
Is that right?
Of the podcast. It is. I'm not sure if your incredulity is sincere or feigned. Either way, I can confirm.
I'm not sure either.
This is the 178th episode of the podcast. And this week, Dan, what are we discussing?
I don't know.
Okay, I happen to know you know.
Why is it my job to say?
It's not your... Strictly speaking, it's not your job.
Are we talking about Star Trek Picard?
Yes, we're talking about Star Trek Picard.
Because that's what I watched.
Season 3, episode
7.
Episode 7. Entitled...
I mean, ask Jesse if he knows so much.
Okay, Jesse, do you know the title of this episode?
Dominion?
Dominion, that's correct.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay.
There you go.
In the meantime, I do think we need to get back on the...
You're right.
Sort of Star
My
Trek.
apologies.
The Star Trek of it all.
When we're doing a whole thing where we're being calm.
No, we did that last week.
We don't have to.
We can be all fucking...
Was that only last week that we were calm?
You know what I do like, though?
Hey there, how's it going?
I do like...
We're wacky guys.
I do like when we play a sound file that we're quiet during the sound thing.
Yeah.
And we did a pretty good job last week.
You like that.
I like that.
You didn't ask if Jesse or I
No, I like that.
We might like it when we're talking over the sound file that you're trying to play, so then you have to play it again, and it sounds a little awkward because people are like,
Yeah,
is he playing it again?
Yeah, exactly.
I think we did that,
It loses some punch. So anyway, I thought we did a good job of not talking over the sound files last week, but you know what? I think we can do even better. I think we can do better. Do you guys think we can do better?
We can always do better.
See, I'm spinning it positive.
You're also being mildly condescending. But yes, we can.
Sort of.
We can try. Would you like a quick...
What are you selling, Dan?
How about we have a quick off-topic Star Trek quiz? We'll get to the Picard episode in a second, but I have a one-question quiz.
Okay.
And either of you can buzz in to try to answer this question. The
Can we
question...
see if our buzzers are working first?
Yeah, it's a fill in the blank question. You have to tell me what is the blank word. What is the missing word? Are you ready? All right. The question is, blank is SETI Alpha 5.
Where?
Blank is SETI Alpha 5. Jesse?
This.
That's right.
Oh.
This is SETI Alpha 5.
Well, where was my buzzing sound? Where?
But you didn't provide the answer. It doesn't matter.
I'm just kidding.
Right,
Jesse wins.
All right. Okay.
This,
so
you're right.
now that's gotten us back on the old Star Trek train.
I said, where is SETI Alpha 5?
Now we're talking Star Trek.
All right. Now we're at least in the
We're not talking sodas or
in the arena of Star Trek.
Showtime or
A pretty intense episode. Mm-hmm. How long was it? I think it was a little shorter than they have been.
It seemed shorter.
It was 46 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's been pretty long episodes this season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Name one.
Well, one of them was called Imposters. Another one was called The Next Generation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
All right. So, okay. Threw me off a little bit there, but we'll continue. Oh, yes. In terms of discussing this episode, there is a lot in these 47 or 46 minutes. They packed in a whole lot.
Well, that first song that she was all humming, I was like, that's either Three Blind Mice or it's Hot Cross Buns. Turns out it was Three Blind Mice.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it could have been Hot Cross Buns up until, at that point. By that point, and a little beyond that point, we didn't find out to the end that it was actually Three Blind Mice. So if you listen to her like, oh, that's obviously Three Blind Mice, it could have also been Hot Cross Buns. So just letting you know, in case I'm making an assumption that I know something that you don't, which is something everyone loves to hear from another person.
Again, we're having a condescending week. Nothing wrong with that.
I'm just on top of the world today.
I mean, yes, you apparently are. You're like, fuck you. You guys all suck.
Yeah, everyone's shitting
I'm
on me.
above all you.
Maybe everyone's been shitting on me, so I'm insecure.
No, I don't think that's the case. What we were saying? Something. Oh, yes.
Three Blind Mice.
Blind Mice. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I was thinking we might, sort of talk about something, one of the broader plot thematic elements or something, but I do like the Three Blind Mice business.
Broader plot
because it's a
elements.
scary song. It's a freaky song.
Did we know that going into the season that Tuvok would be a part of
No.
the show?
We didn't.
No.
We did not know that.
We did not. And in fact, there was some significant Sturm and Drang on the internet.
Some certificate what?
Sturm and Drang.
Because it wasn't really Tuvok.
Hubbub. Kerfuffle. Not quite a kerfuffle.
Brouhaha? Was it a brouhaha?
A brouhaha, yes. Not a kerfuffle. A kerfuffle sort of makes you think it implies the use of Jesse's got his piano this week. A kerfuffle seems more like discrete players against each other as opposed to a broader thing. What happened was that as soon as the episode was released at 3 a.m. Eastern time, midnight Pacific time in the U.S. on Paramount Plus. Oh, and it was also released a little early this week. That was another scandal this week.
Really?
It was released early by accident in England on I think on Paramount Plus or Amazon or whatever.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was out like 3, 4, 5 hours, something like that.
I think they
way
have
early.
Amazon, don't they?
They might, but so that was first thing. But then that was overshadowed by the fact that as soon as it came out, people started spoiling the
I'm sure.
Tuvok.
So Reddit must have been
inclusion.
obnoxious. Like at the
I
point.
don't know because I stay
Reddit's-
off of
Reddit
social
always
media.
obnoxious?
Well, Reddit off actually, I have to give them credit. Reddit, the subreddits, the main subreddits are usually pretty good about not
Yeah.
spoiling stuff. Usually,
Or
but
there-
then
there are-
it'll happen if you look too
There
hard.
are subreddits that explicitly state do not subscribe to our subreddit
Right.
because we have no spoiler rule. Like we have all spoilers all the
Yeah.
time, which you can quibble with whether that's the way to do it or not. But they at least advertise that. I think it's more like Twitter, Facebook, that sort of thing, where people immediately start posting reactions and pictures and memes. They start memeing up shit,
Dude,
and so a lot of people had it spoiled because not only do a lot of people not get to watch the show until later on Thursday in the US and North America, where it's released on Thursday, a number of people around the world don't get it till Friday. So and a lot of them don't get to watch it until Friday evening, right?
Oh,
so
man.
a lot of people were
Where is
upset
that?
by being spoiled about like Europe.
Europe.
Yeah, I think England. Well, maybe not England, but there's plenty of countries I think that don't get it until Friday.
This happened to me when I was watching The Mandalorian. I won't say what spoiler, but it was a
Oh,
big
man.
spoiler in The Mandalorian season 2. And I went to my that sounded like Indiana Jones Temple of Doom.
Are we still singing two different ones?
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that they match up well enough.
So it happens. I've said before that
You guys
when
are
I
just going doo-doo-doo.
when I sang, I think I mentioned this when I would hum the Family Matters theme song in my head. It would often blend into the Full House theme song.
You've mentioned this on a few occasions. Yeah.
Okay, my point I was making was this happened to me with The Mandalorian season 2. I won't say which spoiler, but I was looking through my Google.
Season 2, not the current season 3.
That's why I said season 2.
No, currently it's at season 3.
I know. I was watching The Mandalorian when it was
in season 2. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm just sort of trying to
it's
temporarily
fine.
locate
It's fine.
the people listening,
No.
myself included.
I thought you were giving me shit.
No, I thought I was like, is this a recent thing? Because that might matter. It could be like, is this something that only like do I for the context do I need to understand that the Queen of England is dead? Like, is that going to be important? Is this a post-COVID or a mid-COVID thing? I don't know. Okay, season 2.
I'm trying to figure out who died since then. A lot of people. Ray Liotta?
Yeah, well, he did. Cocaine Bear. He was filming a film after Cocaine Bear, but I don't know if he finished it.
Anyways, so the spoiler, I was looking through my Google feed, which on the Android phone, a lot of them, if you swipe left, you have this Google feed, and one of them was for this article for some stupid website that I'd never heard of, which is obviously some kind of, scammy clickbait website that you want to block right away because they're just, not that they're going to get you, it's just they're a waste of your time.
We're gonna get you.
But it was like...
Something's gonna get you.
But the headline was something like, how did they get blah, blah, blah to happen at the end of this episode of The Mandalorian?
How did they get blah, blah, blah?
Which is like
boobity-boo.
which is the spoiler is right in the fucking title.
Did you know they blue and
And
I
blah,
bet
blah?
that really grinded your gears.
It did, because it had only been a day or two since the episode aired, so it wasn't like there was any excuse. It was like a day or two, and and I was like looking through the feed, and that's when I was like, I can't look through that if I have any kind of spoiler I'm worried about.
it
If for
sucks.
something recent, like I have to ignore.
It
just jumps in my
it's
face.
Unfortunate that the onus is unfairly put on the recipients. Now I know plenty of people will be like, "Oh, just don't fucking go online." Yeah, I get it. Yes, unfortunately, that's the reality of things. That's
Doesn't
true.
have to be that way.
But it kind of sucks that it's that way. And by the way, it's not that way with everything. There are different levels of fandom and different shows and stuff where it just these kinds of spoilers don't get out as swiftly, or people are a little bit more careful, or you have to like go a little bit further afield in order to stumble across them.
And this website wasn't even like a fan website. It was just a straight up clickbait website.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Bullshit.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, so that matters because Tuvok. Tuvok.
I was going to say we were very circling around this episode.
I need not remind you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we need to get back to the episode.
Sure. Well, let's start with the Tuvok bit,
Well,
right? There's a bait and switch.
It's bad if
They call
got Tuvok.
a Fuvok.
So
Yeah.
Like a
It's
faux Tuvok.
It's Fovok.
You know what's funny?
Fuvok.
You know what's funny? Tuvok sounded a little bit like Neelix to me at first. Maybe it was Tuvix.
Okay, do your Neelix impression.
I don't know if I have a Neelix impression. I'm gonna cook some food.
Okay, no, you do not have a Neelix impression. You're right. Sorry.
Captain Janeway. Captain Janeway.
Mr. Vulcan. Mr. Vulcan.
Mr. Vulcan.
Mr. Vulcan.
Cass.
My girlfriend is 2 years old.
I'm not gonna
The
do
producers have only now realized that might be a problem.
that. Janeway, do you want some food?
You want some coffee made out of mushrooms?
So,
All right, yes.
So I
That's
thought,
a real thing now. isn't
Tuvok.
it?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. And they have it on The Expanse.
Yeah. So yeah, let's all learn how to play Calto. Have you guys anyone know how to play Calto?
There's another vaudeville joke set up. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, y'all
like
heard of this Calto? Let me tell you something about Calto.
Sounds like camel toe.
It does. It does a little bit.
But I was reading about Calto,
Okay.
and
Hey,
Which
mister,
was- what is your-
what's
what-
Calto?
What's your source?
well, my source.
What's your source there, buddy?
What's your source there, buddy?
Hey there, buddy. What's your source?
I don't like your tone.
Memory Alpha. Calto is a Vulcan game of intense strategy that could be played solitaire or by multiple individuals. The object of Calto, as stated
It's like
by
Chinese checkers.
Tuvok. Remember what we were saying?
No.
I think he's referring to the interrupting bits.
I'll let you know if it's like checkers.
Can he play his piano though?
He can play his piano.
Can he give you like a little undercurrent of like like some like explaining a fictional card game music?
Yeah, sure. That's fine. That's fine. I'm happy to answer your question in just a moment.
All right, so hold the question, but you can play fictional card game music.
Yes. The object of Calto, as stated by Tuvok, was, quote, not about striving for balance, but about finding the seeds of order in even the most profound chaos.
Okay. All right.
He loves the chaos.
So I don't know if there's any rules on Calto.
So we don't know much.
We don't know
about Calto.
rules of Calto.
All right. I think a lot of people took something else away from this. The appearance of Tuvok, fake Tuvok, false Tuvok,
No,
fraudulent Tuvok.
there's no rules on Calto.
I do hope we get to see the real Tuvok and that he's
Vulcan's
okay,
got enough rules, man.
that he'll be rescued somewhere along the way, because it'd be great to see real Tuvok. They're not going to leave that thread dangling, right?
I liked
We're being very patient with you, Dan. You asked us not to interrupt.
when
We're good.
that was really good, guys. I'm sorry. I probably deserved it at that point, you know?
I mean, you're saying deserved it as if you've been afflicted with something when you've been afflicted with nothing other than politeness and kindness.
Oh, wow. Wow. Well, no, I mean just now because I was just quiet and not going anywhere, which is probably why you guys interrupted me in the first place. Because it's like, okay, Dan's wandering off again. We got to bring him home anyway.
Yes, I mean,
like I'm a cow.
We're a significant way into the
Okay.
the time of this podcast, and we have talked very little about this particular episode, which was by all accounts, most people consider this a really great episode.
I take full responsibility for that. So when it was cool when they found out when they found out that it was the real Tuvok because they played the Voyager music and it kicked in.
Yeah.
But then it was like, psych.
Right.
It's not really. It's not really.
Yeah. There was that. It was weird. But there was that whole like snatch of. Little snatch of the music.
Should have asked him who he was working for that time he was combing the desert.
He didn't find shit.
Yes, he did not find shit.
But apparently,
a Vulcan would never go to Acleon 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you see, I didn't even know that.
Because it has to do with the colon. It was an anti-colinar demonstration. What's an anti-colinar demonstration anyway?
Well, it's like it's it's not like a virtual colinar.
Okay. So I know what they were saying.
Colonards.
Colonoscopy.
Colonoscopy.
Is that what you wanted to say?
I think that wasn't that a phrase that Jesse
colonoscopy?
No, I
colonoscopy.
I made a joke about a virtual colinar.
Oh yeah,
and it was
colonoscopy.
Totally gold, and then you started going off about a virtual colonoscopy.
I can't even remember what episode that was.
And I turned
it was way back.
I must be an alchemist because I turned it to platinum.
I think we had Jimmy as a guest.
Do we want to talk about Colinar?
Okay, Colinar is that whole thing that the Vulcans do where they purge themselves of, or pretend they purge themselves of all their emotions. Spock was going to do it at the beginning of it was the motion picture, but then V'ger started talking to him, so he was like, "Man, fuck that."
Is this one of the Vulcan traditions that involves like violence?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just more about just
meditative,
getting rid of all your emotions and attachments and stuff.
Ultra Vulcan.
So why would you have an anti-Colinar movement? What does that even mean?
Okay.
Anti-Colinar demonstration. That's it's weird.
My only problem with this is it was so verbose that it started. Sometimes you're watching this and you're like, I'm watching a TV show. He's all like,
I almost did a spit take.
He's like, a Vulcan would never go to blah 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 because of the anti blah blah blah.
Yeah, right.
And furthermore, blah blah blah. I was like, okay,
my friend.
This only works because Jerry Ryan can pull it off. But it was kind of like, I think you had one extra sentence that you didn't need in there. It could have just been like bullshit. She could have just been like bullshit.
Yeah.
Fuck you. You aren't Tuvok.
Yeah.
If the changeling goo people, if they've got Tuvok, that's bad news. That means like, do they have Janeway too? Like who else?
Well, Janeway keeps being brought up this whole season.
Yeah, that's true.
And we don't have any information that suggests that Janeway or Kate Mulgrew is guest starring this season.
I keep hoping it's going to happen, but I
think
it's
a
not
lot
gonna.
of people are hoping it.
But it's not. I don't think it's
probably
gonna.
not.
The producers keep saying like, no,
I don't buy it.
They keep saying that she's Janeway's.
Well, I mean, how are they saying it? Are they saying like, no, I don't think so? Or are they saying like, no, I don't necessarily.
People are saying they keep saying like that the Janeway character is meant to be exclusive to Prodigy right now.
That makes sense.
Yes, but I also don't buy it because it is a whole universe they have there. And so
that doesn't necessarily. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole universe, but I guess it doesn't really. I mean, it's got different. I don't know how the licensing works.
Okay,
on that kind
so
of shit.
how about this? It makes sense to me in the context of different. You're dealing with slightly different time periods here, so revealing information on Picard might impact the plot of Prodigy in some way or another. However, they've already mentioned that Janeway's around. That's the thing, is they keep mentioning Janeway. So you'd think, hopefully at some point, not maybe, hopefully, that's my own subjective opinion.
They mentioned Klingons a bunch in Discovery, but we never saw them.
Yeah, but that's because they're just fucking with us at this stage. They are just actively fucking with us.
Right.
I'm hoping season 5 is nothing but fucking Klingons.
Do you want them to be old Klingons or new Klingons?
I want the first episode of Discovery season 5. It's final season.
They should be like TOS Klingons.
Sadly, it's final season. I want the gimmick to be like, oh, we've got to go to Kronos and do some stuff, and then the whole episode, the whole
Klingon
season
orgy.
You know how in this season of Picard they just keep hanging out at like Mtalas 3 and Sector 6 or whatever. Like that's what it should be. It should be like in one small Klingon town, a season long arc, and it should have all the types of Klingons. It should have the Discovery Klingons, the TNG and TOS movie era Klingons. It should
Big
have
old
the
bushy
old
eyebrows
TOS Klingons.
Do you think that gag could work for a whole season? I mean, I could see like an episode joke about
I'd watch it.
I would watch it, but that would be wild.
All right. Well, maybe they won't do that. But,
Maybe.
we'll see.
Remember like that one time 5 minutes ago when you were all talking about how like you were like we're watching a TV show because of the line you saw. It's interesting you mentioned that because I was watching something on Star Wars and Mark Hamill was on the Johnny Carson
Star
show.
Wars. You said Star Wars.
Did I say Star Wars? Star Wars.
I was like, dude, you're from inside the Beltway. Why are you talking Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Hey, buddy, you ever see a Star Wars?
Because that's how you pronounce it now.
All right.
But there's apparently Mark Hamill was telling Johnny Carson a line that he told George Lucas to change because he was like, people don't talk like this. And the line was, and keeping in mind the line we just mentioned
And a quick sidebar for our younger listeners. Johnny Carson was a television host, a late night TV host. He hosted
Before Jimmy Fallon.
The Tonight Show before Jay Leno and before Conan O'Brien and before Jimmy Fallon. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So the line was, I was just making sure you were done.
Yes, I'm thoroughly done.
The line was, keeping in mind that Patrick was talking about this episode having like some lines that is a little clumsy and long and weird. But this line was, but we can't, because he's talking to Han Solo. Luke Skywalker's talking to Han Solo. He goes, but we can't turn back. Fear is their greatest defense. I doubt if the actual security there is any greater it was on Aquilai or Salest. And what there is most likely directed towards a large-scale assault. That line was originally in Star Wars.
That was just in like they were doing that in the screen test. Right?
Yeah. And I just brought it up because it reminded me of that because we were talking about long lines, but I don't know if that really paid. I don't know if it paid off what I just did.
Right.
Or not.
Well, we'll find out when the ratings come in.
When the ratings come in.
That was in the script, and they were like, "Dude, we can't say this."
Yeah, Mark Hamill.
shit.
Yeah, Mark Hamill was like, "This line, nobody talks like
you
this."
You gotta cut this.
Yeah. So.
So next topic of conversation of the many multi-layered plots and stuff going on.
Do Vulcans hold grudges? Because they're saying
Vulcans hold.
They say they will never go back to Acleon 7 after the anti-Colinar demonstration. It doesn't seem logical to hold a grudge.
I guess that was part of what I found.
They hold it right between the cheeks.
I got nothing. I got nothing wrong with Vulcans holding grudges.
Tight
I got
cheeks.
nothing wrong with that basic fact. I just kind of. I would have left it personally. Armchair, high-profile Hollywood television.
They
writer.
ruined Star Trek for me.
I would have just stuck with the whole like neural. She talked about the neural stabilization with the mind meld. Maybe focus on that and forget about the Athan. Prime, because it was a hat. You know what it was? It was a hat on a hat.
Yeah,
it was a hat on a hat.
That's hat on hat.
It was a non-humor hat on a hat.
Is an ass hat a hat on your ass, or an ass made of hat, or
hat made of ass?
Or a hat made of ass. It's a hat made of ass.
It means you have your head up your ass. Right?
Yeah, I think that's what it's supposed to imply.
Ass hat. I never thought of that. That's pretty good.
Maybe it's because you're an ass hat.
It's maybe because you got your head up your ass. Maybe because
All right. So okay, we're marching. We're marching along here. We're marching along.
Scene 2.
So the Titan is hiding among a bunch of junk.
Yeah, it's tight. Isn't that cool?
It is cool. Everything. It's all very awesome.
It's cool that they have like, and they've been bouncing around the different like junk piles in the galaxy, like
so
Alpha Quadrant.
So So speaking of that junk pile, when Jack was all like being Jack, and Picard was like, maybe we do have the advantage. And they were talking, and then they played that sound of the VSS.
Because I have a plan.
The VSS Tiplana. Remember when Vatican Company were going to raid onto the Titan, and like the way
we all watched the same show.
Yes, right. I'm just reminding you of the part I'm talking about. Yes. And then they played that video. She played that sound file of like, this is the VSS Tiplana. We're all fucked up. Yeah. Oh no. Was that the Enterprise? Well, not the Enterprise. Was that the Titan sending out a fake distress signal?
I thought so.
To them because were they trying to basically?
I thought it was a doctored recording.
So they were hiding under this junk, but were they trying to make it look like the junk that they're hiding under is the remnants of a ship they just blew up?
Yeah, because
I guess so.
Because the Shrike recognized that both ships were disabled.
Yeah, the Shrike did recognize that
they bought it,
and so they bought it that it was some kind of. Mm-hmm.
If that was actually something that the Titan doctored, if it's a fake, then I think they bought it.
And she, one of her crew members, of course, Captain Vadic's crew members, is immediately like, "This seems like a trap." And she was like, "Fuck you, dude."
Yeah.
It was this alien. That was
I mean, you're right. Now, once you played that, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
Now I remember him saying exactly that.
I
Well,
thought
but-
he was going to say that.
I've been trying to translate these aliens, but it's actually a lot harder than it seems because I can't tell the difference between the alien noises and the ship noises. It's very
So are
confusing.
those guys like changelings with some kind of
I think
janky kind of
So here's the gag here. I think I've figured this out.
some kind of snot alien?
It's
not alien.
I enjoy these characters. I enjoy this idea of these special changelings having to deal with. There's something weird about them. We're learning more. We learn a lot more this episode, certainly about that. And I've been enjoying this dynamic. But I also started realizing I was like, okay, why do they have them in these big costumes and they're just making gurgly goobly noises and the subtitles and all that? I'm guessing, yeah, it's kind of neat. It's cool. Vadic needed some hulking, nameless people to do attacks and things
they
like
are
that.
they are big. They look like they got some big actors playing.
They're all big actors.
Big actors.
And who knows? We'll probably find out a little bit more about them.
You got a big
I
actor.
suggested last week that maybe there's something about them they can't hold their form properly or something. Although again, there's a little confusing stuff when it comes
I
to the
am
history.
fearful of the same thing.
Yeah, we learn here. But I also think that this is sort of I think there's some classic Star Trek stuff going on this season in particular. And by that, I mean the financial constraints. I think when you look at how many sets they have, they keep going to 10 forward. There's a lot of 10 forward bridge, conference room. There's a fairly constrained set of places they're hanging out.
hallway.
There's a fairly
the same hallway.
constrained set of people. They've even emptied the Titan of all the other crew, so they don't have to have the
I am
extras.
fearful of the same thing.
Extras going around. They don't have to pay anybody to be have a speaking role on Vadic's ship. So it's really just Captain Vadic talking to herself basically the whole time, right? So I
and
think
the face monster.
well, yes, and the face monster.
Face monster.
It's just the face monster, which we can talk a little bit more about in a second.
The
But
closed captioning calls it just face.
Yes.
It's funny.
do you think it's face from the show with Mr. T? Yeah, the A-Team.
No,
Face Man?
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's him either. But I don't know. This is a podcast where we bandy about clever ideas.
What if it's Murdoch?
I hope it's not Murdoch.
Me neither.
But yes, I just a little observation I had that when you think about it, I think there's a lot of cost saving because all these actors are. I'm sure it
Well, they
costs a lot
probably-
of money to get a lot of these actors.
And
They got to
probably-
pay for Amanda Plummer.
And the special effects are very good
Yeah,
too.
whenever they have the gooey special effects like that's expensive. So, right.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not complaining about it. I actually kind of like when there are. There's always constraints. Look, when you're making a television show, you could always use more money, more time, etc. So it's not like there's no constraints on any of the modern Star Trek shows at all. However, they have had pretty nice, big, beefy budgets and a lot of flexibility and stuff, which has been great. But it's kind of fun also to have those episodes where you're like what they used to call bottle episodes, where you're like, oh, they've trapped somebody in a closet. He's
Right.
got to find his way out of the closet to save money.
Where's the closet?
I can't even see. The windows are fogged up. I can't see the stars outside because
Right.
the windows are all
You
foggy.
can't afford them.
That's the best, man.
Well, I there was a whole bunch of alien talk. I only took 2 other ones because it was just too hard to parse the rest. But one day I think we can translate this. So there's this phrase. What do you think they were saying there,
I don't know. I mean, quite literally, I don't know.
Jesse? What do you think they were saying there?
Is there bacon on that?
No. Patrick, do you want to guess? Do you want to?
No, I already said no. I'm not gonna fucking guess at this nonsense. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm enjoying.
That's not
I'm
a
enjoying
language.
what you're doing.
This guy knows. He's
But I'm
got
only-
a PhD. He knows that's not a language.
Not yet. I don't have the PhD yet. And
sorry.
And
Me neither.
and I'm willing to participate, but only up to a certain point.
It means, okay. It means it appears someone beat us to the Titan.
Oh,
right,
was that one of the things that were actually subtitles?
Yeah, there were a bunch of subtitles, but it was impossible to like parse them from what was actually being said most of the time.
Okay.
This one is just one.
It's a
I-
hoax language.
This
I
one-
enjoyed that so much so we got to take a break, but I want to hear this last translation. I want to
Okay.
hear. We'll take a guess at what this says.
It's not proper
and then we're going to be
conlang
so when we hear the translation, it'll be the perfect time for us to take a break.
So you want to do it now?
I want to do it now,
Okay.
and then take a break after because I'm confident enough that the Actual translation is going to be it's going to be perfect for going into break. It's going to be the perfect segue into a break. All right, and what does that? Do you want to take a guess, Jesse?
Mayonnaise.
Close.
All right, what's it saying?
You're not going to guess, Patrick.
I can't guess. It's far above my head. I'm not a linguist.
He's afraid that he'll be wrong, and then everyone will judge him for it.
No, I know I'll be wrong, and so I'm saving my energy to be wrong about other things that I
He's
have
saving.
less of a chance.
He's
of being
saving
wrong
his
about.
reputation. Okay.
All right.
Something about neutrinos.
It means captain.
All
so
right.
we've got an official word of this alien language.
We'll be right back.
Means captain.
We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right.
All you
back.
cryptologists out there, figure out what the language is.
We'll be right back after no messages. We'll
It'd
just
be
we'll be back in a bit.
Xenolinguistics.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye bye. No, don't go away. We'll be for the podcast. This is the end of the first break. We will return so shortly. So shortly.
So shortly.
I think we're back.
Okay. All
He
right.
loves the chaos.
Yes. Don't we all?
Who does? Chief O'Brien.
Chief O'Brien?
The data lore stuff
Yeah.
is worth getting into. Before we chase off.
I'd say that's a big thing.
Chase off the rest of our audience. It is a big thing for this season and for this episode in particular. And
God damn it, Lord!
Sounds like Lord just like stole his cookie or something, and he's like,
Well-
"God damn it, mother man! God damn it!"
so, all right,
God damn it, Lord!
we talked last week about how much fun it looked like Brent Spiner was having getting to play all these characters.
I'm here, Jordy.
I think this week, he's just more. It's less having fun. He's just doing a great job of it. I think especially the transitions, they've simplified it down to now, somewhat incongruently from what they described last week. Now it's, instead of it being lol and this and that, it's just data and lore as like the core personality matrices.
Yeah, so it says it contains 4 identity matrices,
Which is leaving out lol for some reason. They mentioned lol last
Yeah,
week.
you're right. They did.
But let's just assume lol is one of
So-
the memory squishy.
Yeah, so Soong
bits.
and B4, and now we're assuming lol, operate as a memory file only.
I'm still aggravated by the name B4, by the way. It's one of the things I don't like about Nemesis.
It's too on the nose or something.
I just don't like it.
What about
B4?
R2D2?
Yeah, I
Like
mean,
B4 data.
yeah, I know.
Come on.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's too on the nose.
It's
yeah.
a little on the nose.
Yeah. So Soong and B4 are operate as a memory file, but there's a clear partition between data and lore. That's a confusing statement. It doesn't, what do they really mean? Because memory files exist on partitioned drives, as far as we know. In the
But
future,
a
with
partition also means a wall.
Oh, partition does mean a wall. So they're saying it's a memory file only versus a.
Well, that's lol. They're saying lol and no. They're saying
Soong and
B4 and
Soong.
Soong are memory files only.
Yes.
And that data and lore are some sort of active personality matrix. Each of them has a matrix. Technobabble, and that there is some sort of dividing wall between them that is clearly not impervious because both data and lore are trading, sort of taking control.
This would imply that Soong and B4's mind isn't as complex and dynamic as data and lore's.
I do not think that is a fair assumption to
Well,
make.
because what does it mean? It's a memory file only.
I think it means they did not have that. Neither of those people were. They didn't have enough of their personality information. Like, you can assume that you got a computer and you've got some bits over here, like some programming bits, and then you got some data bits. I think data and lore have the programming bits,
Like the doctor did,
and the memories.
put some recordings in there to explain it.
Whereas I think the other bits, I took it to mean the other bits are just a less sophisticated copy. They don't have the AI.
Well,
bits.
that's kind of what I was trying. I think I was trying to say in so many words.
Oh,
what
I'm sorry if I mistook it, because I had mistaken you to suggest that the original people.
No.
I mean, because before definitely did have a less sophisticated mind because he was
what I meant is by virtue of the fact that they're like a memory file only, it's not as is complex and dynamic versus what exists between Data and Lore in that particular brain structure.
I
created.
loved all the Data Lore stuff. I like Brent Spiner's acting. I did notice, however, or at least these scenes where I started noticing that this episode has a ton of ADR. You know, like the voiceover stuff where they show people the back of people's heads, and then Geordi in a different tone, clearly recorded somewhere else, is like, and by the way, what we have to do is this. And I think some of it is, it almost feels like that studio pressure of like, we need the audience won't understand. You need to explain more. I think there were some extraneous lines. Maybe some of them were helpful. Again, it's not meant as a critique. It's difficult to edit these shows together, but it seemed like they were editing the show together and decided we don't have enough information here, so we've got to squish in some information after the fact.
There was
could be wrong about that. It just kind of seemed like that.
There was a moment where you could see Beverly's face, and I swear the end of her line, it was like seeing her face through like one of the energy walls, the containment chamber walls or something. There was something
like a force field. There
was like a force field or something, and you could see her lips move, and the last word like didn't match up with the lips, so that sounded like you're talking back of the head ADR. I'm talking about, I think they straight.
Well, there was a lot of ADR in this episode,
and I don't know if this is what you mean by like explaining to the audience. What you probably mean is exposition, like from the Star Trek universe. They're explaining it. Like there was one line where Beverly was like, Jean-Luc, she took the face of her torturer. Why? And he's like, to remind herself of her hate. Yeah. And like that's good, but like that was a line totally for the audience, you know, I think, because like
sure. And I don't mind that so much as long as it's like well done.
Well, you know, that old showboat Captain Picard.
Yeah. And I don't mind any of this stuff because I understand where it comes. It's just sometimes it jumps out at you. Sometimes there's a couple things where you're like, oh, they went in there and had to like record some extra stuff.
I like it when Laura says that Picard looks all old because so does Laura.
I know.
It looks like old Laura.
My favorite bit with the Laura stuff was Alondra LaForge asking if Lore was always this arch.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
And he starts talking about, you know, sometimes you need a little bend.
Because he's like being extra arch.
I'm glad they did that.
It's been so long since we've seen him, and it's like extra.
And they wanted him to be an arch character. That was the role they were playing. They've got a lot of art. It drew attention to the fact that this season has a lot of archness to it. Captain Vadic is super arch.
Oh, man.
The creepy face monster is extra arch. These are very arch characters, and I liked that Alondra kind of called attention to it while also excusing it so that Laura could have the opportunity to be like, I've dealt with these assholes for a long time. I'm going to be a little ridiculous about it.
I wasn't sure how I felt about this line. It's not a big deal.
The enemy of my enemy is... you know the rest.
This is
and the problem
this is Dan's cliche alarm.
Well,
went off.
The problem, and it was a very specific version of that because like Data was very noticeably stating the cliche. It was self-recognized clicheing, right?
Does that cliche come from any sort of literature where somebody actually says that?
I don't know. I never know the origins.
Is that just something that somebody put together? And
it's either like the Bible or Die Hard, or sometimes Star Trek. A lot of stuff comes from Star Trek.
So, like, it was self-referential because he was pointing out that he was bringing up that cliche. But at the same time, when he was like going like, the enemy of my enemy is, well, you know the rest. It's like, it would have been quicker to just say, just finish the cliche.
Absolutely.
And as it stood, it was obvious that he was extending it out to make a point and a joke, and I didn't land for me.
Do you think that the writers...
Well, Laura's an asshole.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think the writers... the writers did that on purpose, perhaps,
just to make Laura...
to drive home the fact that he's a complete dickhead.
Yeah, totally.
There was this video game called Earthworm Jim, and sometimes people in the manual, it was like, if you're cool, you'll abbreviate it to EWJ, even though that has more syllables than like saying Earthworm Jim. And he's right. If you EWJ has more syllables than Earthworm Jim. That's what was going on here. But yeah, I guess the answer is Laura's an asshole.
I enjoyed that anecdote.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I did too.
Made me think you didn't.
I never played the game, but I read about it. And it was
it's a Star Trek podcast, but it's good to expand beyond that a little bit and have a little... bring in some of the outside world.
Jesse, you've heard of that game?
Yeah,
I've heard of that game.
It's fun.
I know that game.
I think I read about it in like Nintendo.
When Vadic was looking at her arm, I'm making a weird sideways
Dan is making an upsetting motion. I think he just realized that it could be misinterpreted, and
But it was going sideways and not up
this is
and
an
down.
audio program.
That's
they can't see that.
Okay.
It's a funny gesture, sir.
When Vatic was looking at her arm map, her arm computer,
Yes,
in Fallout, they have a similar device.
Oh, where it showed the ship and the life forms.
you make
Yeah.
a lot of references to video games.
Yeah, because I played a lot of video games in my life.
Do you think that beyond
I
just
was not aware of that.
playing video games, that video games, the various aspects of video games,
Video game?
have created sort of like a crystallized structure, like a metaphorical crystallized structure
A crystalline entity?
that helps support and inform your worldview?
I don't know if I take it that seriously, but I do think about how they're neat.
All the time, the fucking time.
It's called in Fallout. It's called the Pip Boy. That's what it's called, the Pip Boy.
Yeah,
Not the Pep Boys, the Pip Boy.
yeah.
I don't know. I just video games are neat. They're fun. They're cool. And I don't even play that many video games anymore. It's just I like to know about what's going on with them.
I can quit playing video games whenever I want.
Yeah,
Video games are
could.
inherently positive.
I agree.
Let it be known.
Let it be known.
That's my opinion.
So we were talking about that because we're talking about the lore statement thing. Yeah, okay.
The lore stuff was a little bit confusing in the sense that there was so much.
Lore's an asshole.
Okay, look, there was so much going on in this episode, and I really appreciated it. I appreciated it from the first viewing, but the second viewing, knowing what was coming and it helped me make sense of things a little bit because there's just a lot going on. And the lore the lore stuff was a little confusing because it was like it doesn't seem like Lore is working, like Lore doesn't appear to be working with Vatic, but he senses what's going on, and this is his way to break out. Of course, in the end, Data is able to take over anyway, but it's right after Lore fucks everything up. And Lore seems pretty confident that he's not going to get fucked up in this process. Again, on a second watch, it's a little bit more straightforward, makes more sense, but a lot of stuff jam-packed in there.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that when Vatic got on the ship, she was talking about how Jack was talking about how half the ship was empty. She was pointing out that everyone was scattered about. And Jack, when he was talking
he was like, everyone's dead.
Rats.
Was everyone dead? Is that why half the ship was empty?
No, he said that. He said everyone was dead.
It was part of the ruse that he killed
part
them
of the
No,
ruse.
but he was talking to Sydney. When he was talking to Sydney about like her quarters when he was being
that was because remember they emptied it when the whole Roe thing. Before Roe blew herself up, they emptied out all the non-essential.
No, I was trying to remember where that happened. See, my memory's like not so hot, man.
Not so
Not
hot.
They
so
got rid
hot.
of all the science officers.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense.
We do learn in this process when Vatic gets trapped by Picard and Crusher and goes on her little, not tirade at all. She was very calm about it.
Aren't you adorable?
It's an awful backstory.
Yes. She describes being effectively a prisoner of war.
Project Proteus.
Captured
a guinea pig.
and by the Federation, by Starfleet, and then experimented on. Early in the war, I'm very glad that she corrected the historical record, at least that Picard seems to buy into.
Oh, yeah.
Because last week we mentioned that Picard said something about Starfleet gave the Changeling the Secure, and we pointed out, no, Odo and Bashir and O'Brien were the ones who got together to help do that. Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, she was like
Chief O'Brien?
when Picard was like, yeah, we gave your people a cure, and she was like, that's what the history books tell you.
And then she was like, one
And
of
they
our
all
own
looked
had to
bummed
take
up.
it. Now, she also is rewriting history because she said one of our own, implying Odo, had to steal it back, when actually it was Odo with the help of Dr. Bashir and O'Brien, of course.
So Odo didn't go through all that pain that she did, apparently.
Odo didn't go.
I mean,
No,
Odo's emotionally traumatized by it, maybe, but like...
Okay.
Odo already killed a changeling.
Yes, he did. Odo does describe on Deep Space Nine in his background. He describes effectively being tortured. He was poked and prodded and other things done to him until he slapped the hand of his of the doctor. What's his name? Who
Right there!
So Odo also went through some of this. However, the difference in that case was that as soon as Odo demonstrated to the scientists sentience, they stopped, or at least they changed their experimental protocol.
Because they're not Starfleet.
They were still taking advantage of Odo in a lot of ways, and we won't go into all the details there. See Deep Space Nine to get more details about that. But it is a different scenario to what apparently happened here, and I think we can take Vadic at her word that she was brutally tortured by these evil scientist people, one of whom she has decided to mimic.
Yeah,
that was cool.
Yeah, it was an interesting point when she was like, how remarkable it is that an enlightenment species,
an enlightened species.
I know, enlightened. I don't know why I have enlightenment written down.
I suspect, and I don't want to make an assumption here, but I suspect it's a typo.
Yeah, it was a typo.
I'm surprised.
What?
That you would have a typo.
No, it wasn't my typo. It was what I copied it from I copied it from that line.
Transcription.
Yeah, an enlightened species can ignore each other's pain. Do you think she'd have kept your son from you if she could feel your loss? I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that, but it seems like a good point to me.
I'm assuming we're meant to understand that she's talking about like the Great Link type thing, saying like the Great Link is better than being like you solid separate people.
The GUI continuum.
Because you guys would have known both your concerns and like been able to allay concerns. There would have been like an instantaneous process. It just wouldn't exist as a problem. This idea of like having a secret child.
Well, no, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying is like. I thought that was an interesting point. It's like, do you think she'd have kept him from you if she could feel your pain on that? Exactly. Yeah. And so to me, I was like, that's a good point. Although I also was trying to like diplomatically not insert myself into the discussion of how parents react. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I like seeing Daniel awkward. Dan's only going to say the wrong thing.
I don't want to pretend I know what it's like to be like a dude with a child that who has a woman that
you can
who had a child with a woman and the child stayed with the woman.
It's about like what you imagine.
Yeah, but I'm sure there's complex subtleties in the scenario there's nuance involved, right?
And Dan, you're right to be concerned.
but what I was trying to say is I was trying to put that preface out what is it? I was qualifying it with that to go on to say like, yes, it's an interesting point to make that if you could feel someone else's pain, would you go through the same actions that hurt them in that way for your benefit?
And on that greater point,
it's all about what benefits you more, getting this thing or not feeling that pain.
There's been a lot of discussion about this situation with Beverly Jack and Jean-Luc.
Beverly Jackson.
Over the course of this season, since it was revealed.
Married to Shinzon Jackson.
Since it was revealed that Jack is Picard's child, or presumably, I hope it remains that case. I will get aggravated if later in the season, because there's some hints when Vadic is all like, "He was never for you."
Something's going on.
It's like keeping the child, make it something. It's okay that something's weird about him. I think. Depending on how it plays out, I'm pretty sure I'd be aggravated if it was like, actually, it turns out he's not your child at all. He's a hologram or something.
Midi-chlorians.
But anyway, I was just going to say real quickly that when it comes to this debate about who was right or wrong and what degrees of right and wrong, Beverly and Picard and all that other stuff, it's not that you can't debate it. I do think it's important that people don't debate it from sort of a high level way, because the fact is all of these potential scenarios are very context dependent. And that's where the debate has to center around these specific people, these specific characters.
Slippery.
Sometimes I have seen some of these debates online veer into the more meta, as if there are universal rules about right and wrong when it comes to parenting or not parenting children. And I think that's where you get into more trouble when you start making sort of declarative arguments based off of some sort of universal principle that you perceive to be the case. And it's fine if you want to argue that and defend that proposition, but in the case of having fun while talking about a TV show, certainly every situation is different. And like Worf and his son, there's a whole situation there. That's a context to describe. Geordi and his hologram stuff, that's something to talk about.
Holograms?
It's all about the context.
That's why I said slippery, because context, it's like a slippery slope.
Yes. Anything about the
Tick tock goes the ancient clock.
She uses a lot of humanism, sort of.
She picked up a
references.
lot in that dirty old laboratory.
Yeah, and it's good. It's good that they're explaining that, right? She's got the cigar. She's got the talking about clocks and afternoons in Seoul and all this other bizarre sort of anachronistic stuff.
Yeah.
They've now explained that, or at least inferred an explanation that it comes from her time in captivity, and perhaps even beyond that, as she studied solids, her enemy, in order to know them better.
Solid.
And so that's great. I do note that when it comes to these season-long arcs, and it's not just Star Trek, by the way, sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, there's the mystery, and we're finding out exactly who's, and then you find it out, and you're like, okay, finally they explained it. It was weird. Now they've explained it, so it's retroactively not weird. That's fine. Maybe there's a little too much of that these days in television.
Wait, a little too much of what? Sam?
It's the whole thing where it's like, why is this happening? This is weird and it goes against my expectations. And then 7 episodes down the line, you're like, oh, that's why it's happening.
Right. You mean they're trying to plan too far? Like they're looking on too big of a timeline where they'll give you something and then they'll give you a breadcrumb and then they'll
yeah, I guess from a meta sense,
they'll wave a carrot in front of your face and then give it to you 7 episodes later.
No, not even that necessarily. What I'm talking about is where you're watching through something the first time, and on it, for a lot of people, they watch a TV show. If they're going to watch it, they watch it once and that's it. Right now, a lot of Star Trek people, we're going to watch this stuff over and over and over, right? So it's maybe less of an issue for us. I'm just talking about how it's like, okay, these people are changelings. We find out at some point they're changelings, and they were like, oh, but they're not. They're killing other changelings.
Oh, yeah.
That's against the changeling rules. There's Bucket. There's all these aspects.
There's Bucket.
There's like stuff about these changelings that's different. You were like, why is it? And so at least it's like, is it different because the writers don't know any better? Well,
right.
no.
That's always the question: is it done on
these are
purpose or
rogue
not?
But some people know.
Changelings.
Is it different because they've just opted to say for story reasons we want it? We just don't care because we want to tell a different story.
Well,
or in this case, is it they do have a reason? It's just that we don't learn it till later. And again, I'm using the changeling example. I got no problem with that in and of itself. It's more about the whole thing, because Star Trek, the Picard season 2 was it was just the same thing. It was this whole season of finding out that Dr. Jurati was the Borg. And you start to figure it out like in the last couple episodes maybe, but otherwise it's like, oh, what's the deal with the Borg business? Oh, what's going on? It's so crazy. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be 7 of 9? It's that, I don't know. That's not a very helpful for a long-term story.
Speaking of, do the writers know any better? That's probably one reason people thought that Riker was going to be a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Is because it was kind of uncharacteristic of him to talk that way. Even though I guess he had a reason. Because
we find out the reason later. We find out that he's having problems with Deanna because of his being upset about the death of his son.
He's got
later.
darkness.
We find it later, and that's another thing in this season. And again, when you do one of those, not so bad.
I mean, I feel like at the time though, it could be drawn from that moment in time. I felt like that it seemed like he was behaving differently because, he had not a chip on his shoulder, but he was sensitive about his son. And so you could kind of gather that a little, but it wasn't very clear is the thing.
Yeah, and like I said, individually, none of these I have a problem with. And honestly, this season is fantastic. I am not in any way complaining about the writing or anything of this season. They've done a great job. I'm thoroughly entertained. I just, in the function of a podcast host, and watching the episode a bunch of times in a row, these things jump out a little bit where you're like, oh, there's a lot of stuff where it's like, why is that happening? Oh, now we found out why it's happening. Okay, why is this happening? Now we find out why that's happening.
I think with the Riker thing, what I thought it was out of character, but at the time I was like, oh, he must have something to do with his kid, and he's got this weird fucked up attitude now because of his kid. But at the same time, I remember thinking that at the time, and which it seems like the best explanation for it. But yeah, it wasn't very. I also ran through my head as that could only be my only logic. Right? It's not clear. Yeah. The problem was it's not clear exactly, and I had to make some assumptions to get to that conclusion.
And
I not that everything has to be spelled out for you, but I don't know. It made me question whether the writers.
Well, and it is the whole, and I really want to narrow it down specifically on this whole weirdness is presented, is explained later as part of the plot. There's nothing wrong with that as a storytelling device, but it is not the only one. And in fact, in Star Trek, it was very common to not, in fact, do that. It's here's a problem. Our team gets together, and because of their unique characteristics, they're able to figure out the solution to the problem. There's less of this mystery box that's like, what's happening? What's causing this? Oh my God, what is this? There's a little bit of that because, again, it's totally appropriate, but I could see myself getting sick of it if it's just too much of that.
So
the Discovery, same thing. I love the Discovery season 3, season 4, but there was a lot of that. What is it? What's going to happen? What's the mystery?
So speaking of when you're talking about like how things come to be and if they explain it or not, Face, otherwise known as
the monster face.
He's like a skull.
We still don't know
Smoky skull.
where that technology / ability comes from. Hopefully they'll explain it to us.
He's a changeling.
Now, is that same ability no, but I mean, changeling's one thing, but being able to just like
It's probably not a changeling.
in order.
I bet not.
Okay, so fair enough. But like the point being is like a shapeshifter, just because you can shapeshift doesn't mean you can read other shapeshifters' mind unless you're like connected in the Great Link, but not from a distance like that, which is what they're doing. So do you think that the same technology or ability that that the face monster can use to inhabit Vadic's hand in order to talk to her, do you think that's something similar to what Jack is getting to? Because
Jack the Puppet Master?
Yeah,
Maybe.
exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly. Jack the Puppet Master.
Yeah.
Because he can do moves like, remember that movie Real Steel with Hugh Jackman where he was like, he was part of this robot boxing ring where the fighters stood on the side and the robot mimicked their movements.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing with Sydney.
This is the part where I'm really digging this part of the plot in particular because
So I was wondering if those were the same, if that's related somehow, because like they've got to come up with an explanation for both of them, you'd think. So.
And there is some relation there because that face monster wants Jack alive
He wants
for some
Jack.
purpose. I think it's important that we note, I'm sure other people, notice this as well, that when Picard came up with his idea, his assumption, when he was talking to Vadic, he was stating outright, he was saying like, I know what you're going to do. You want my body and Jack, and you're going to combine the genes somehow to make into some sort of super version of Picard, exact clone of Picard. Picard seems very confident in this conclusion that he's made. I think everything about the show is telegraphing that Picard's conclusion is completely incorrect.
So the
Vadic does not respond when he says that. She doesn't, but she doesn't do anything like weird, like smile coyly or anything. She just sort of ignores it.
So you're talking about the conclusion where Picard is saying like, okay, they're getting my body, filling up the gaps with Jack's DNA so they can sneak into Super Day. Frontier Day.
Super Day Osborne.
Yeah, Super Day Osborne. Frontier. So he can sneak into Frontier Day because he made it to point to say like they genetically test you when you're an admiral going into Frontier Day, and so like he's gonna pass that genetic test now is the idea, and then he's gonna blow up all the
and he's gonna be the dude that fucks all the shit up.
Yeah, fucks all the shit up in the fleet. And you're saying, Patrick, you think they're trying to make us think that.
I think that they're trying to, maybe not trying to make us think that, but they're certainly Picard thinks that. Okay. Maybe the audience is going to go along with Picard just because that's where Picard is going. Now, but here's an example, right? I'm making that prediction because that's the all the literary tropes that are floating around on the screen, to me, say that this is a red herring, that Picard has made an incorrect assumption because he's missing some facts. He doesn't know exactly what's going on.
I am fearful of the same thing.
Yeah. Now, if it turns out that he's absolutely 100% correct, like, hey, yeah, I might be a little aggravated because I'd be like, yeah, I don't know, you're putting down red herrings, and is like sex when the red herring is itself a red herring, like,
too many red herrings.
And I don't think they're doing this. I don't think they're doing this at all because I have a great deal of confidence in these writers because they've put together such a string of
they got good writers,
excellent episodes. In a row, but we're at episode 7, and it's like how many aspects of the story now we have. What's happening with Riker? What's happening? Or the whole Riker acting weird.
Which, by the way, it seems like looking at the whole Worf Raffi role thus far,
Worf Raffi
was really to accomplish two things: one, to get Riker in that position he's in now, and the other is to bring Data to the ship. That's all that happened.
And then to leave for a bit so you don't have to pay those actors.
Yeah,
for those
exactly.
For a few episodes, because now you're paying Geordi.
Yeah, right.
So
and Michael Dorn's already been in a whole bunch of Star Trek, so they,
So I don't know if like they're gonna go back to Raffi and Worf that much at this point.
I mean, they'll
go back to him, but I don't know if they're gonna really do much more.
They're saving money.
Yeah,
they're saving money along the way here.
But Data was talking about because the Data was talking about Irromatic syndrome.
These data is plural.
Irromatic syndrome is in question.
Datum is singular.
Datum.
So I don't think when Data was like the aromatic syndrome is in question or whatever. Remember when he said
Yes.
that? I don't think that's a misdirect. I think that maybe that's related to why Jack has like puppet powers and why the face monster can talk through through telepathy or some kind of weird message system.
And who knows? People online have suggested, maybe it's the Borg. Maybe it's a holdover from Lacuta's brain thing.
That would be believable.
Do you think the face monster is really just speaking through a subspace receiver and and I'm looking too much into that? It seems like the face monster has some kind of secret connection.
I agree.
It's a new technology.
Yeah.
I agree.
Or an ability.
There's
just an enchantment or an ability.
There is the mystery of so all these plot lines, and some of them we're getting a little bit more information. And like we mentioned earlier, there was the Riker's acting weird. Okay, that's been largely resolved. There's been the Shaw is acting weird. That's been largely resolved. Fine, that's fine. Then there's what is Vadic's motivation? Okay, we have a little bit more insight into her motivation, but not entirely. We don't know who the face is. What's the face's motivation? What control does the face have over Vadic? How, why does the face monster have this control over Vadic and her crew? Are they the only ones on this ship? But there's obviously all the ones they have infiltrating Starfleet. But what is their ultimate purpose other than the whole bringing down Starfleet? We still don't know 100%. There's a lot of guesses about Frontier Day, and who knows, maybe that's a red herring too. We still have a few episodes left and to resolve all that, and I'm sure they'll do so in an excellent fashion. But stuff to think about.
Here's the sound of a face falling after it was done.
A face falling?
Back.
Remember a few episodes back, you were you purposely didn't want to get the clip of Cindy LaForge vomiting after seeing.
Oh
her
yeah,
dead body.
because nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, but then you play the face.
Because we can tell ourselves it's a falling goo face and not vomit.
We can tell ourselves all sorts of things. I'll tell you one thing.
What?
It's time for a break.
Oh.
All right, so we will be right back. Very
God
short.
damn it, Lord!
yes, that's right, Jordy. Be back in a moment. All right, we're back.
So yeah. I was going to mention, because we were talking about Vadic and the whole situation with the Cure and all that. So they had
the
that
Cure?
The Cure?
Yeah.
Like the band, The Cure?
Show me how you do that trick. The one that makes me feel seasick.
That's the Cure.
What about that one that's like do 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 do? It sounds better on the keyboard, It has that.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah.
You make me feel like I am. So at the beginning, Beverly was all talking about the Cure situation. So and she was talking about trying to find links and stuff like that. When she was like.
You mean the Atari links?
No.
Sorry, I'm talking over here. You made at the beginning of the podcast. You said, this is what you don't want us to do.
It's okay. I didn't warn you. It's okay.
And you. I think you're okay with it only because I made an Atari links joke.
No, yeah, you're projecting.
That's why you're like that's fine because it's a video game.
It's a video game. It's okay.
It's a video game.
That's a video game.
That's a video game.
So she was all like,
So, I have been weighing the morality of something.
Oh yeah, Beverly? What's that?
These new changelings. It makes them unique. Perhaps there's a way we can exploit that uniqueness. The tool to identify and root them out.
Okay, that's an interesting point. So what?
The solution may be biological, and targeting a species on biology alone is tantamount to genocide.
I think I know where you're going with this, Dan. This is one of Dan's favorite riffs.
And then so Picard says...
Like the virus used against them in the Dominion War.
Exactly.
Or like the unsolvable formula, the geometric formula that Picard wouldn't...
Computer virus.
That Borg wouldn't use to genocide the Borg in the episode I, Borg. It was an unsolvable geometric formula or a computer virus.
All right.
So it was like that, but it was also like this, right?
So new audience members, Dan has a particular obsession with this episode. We haven't even discussed iBorg yet. We should discuss that at some point. I keep forgetting whether Dan ended up on the pro-genocide or anti-genocide side of
I mean,
things.
I understand Picard's point of view, and it makes sense, and that's the right decision. But come on,
Yeah, they're poor.
Well, I'll pay you one more thing in a second after you're done explaining.
Well, I wasn't going to explain anything else.
Okay. Well, Ben Picard goes on to say...
Did you say Ben Picard?
Ben Picard. Ben
Are you saying B's instead of THs
Ben
today?
Picard.
I think you're saying B's instead of THs today.
That's a funny affliction, sir.
But
Be yourself.
I'm going to...
You remember in Aladdin when the genie,
But are you...
played by Robin Williams, shrinks down to a small size, and he's like, "Be yourself."
But are you talking about like that?
No, that's you saying B's instead of WHs.
Oh.
I was saying instead of THs.
Oh no, maybe I am. I'll have to play back the tape. But after Picard says like
the virus used against them in the Dominion War.
Exactly.
he then goes on to say,
Well, see what you can find. We'll weigh the morality if and when this becomes actual.
he already did weigh the morality in the episode of Iborg when they were going to create a computer science to generalize the Borg.
Create the computer science.
He was going to create a computer virus to genocide the Borg.
Yeah. Yes,
I think that's a different situation.
It's a different context potentially, maybe not, but it's a sufficiently different situation that is worth the analysis. It's worth going through the process of analyzing the situation, gathering the facts, and developing a philosophical model upon which you can rest these whatever options you have available, and then slot them in and see if they would fit with
Me neither.
Whoops.
particular morality.
I didn't mean to play that. But no, I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay. But I do think that line specifically, the one where Picard says, let's move forward and then we'll weigh the morality about it later. To me, that was the most TNG line thus far.
It was
in all of Picard.
No, and you know what?
Him sitting there responding to people, or his crew is presenting him options and he's discussing, and then he's effectively giving an order saying like, you know what, let's go ahead, move forward with it. We'll think about the details later, which is a very captain-y thing to do.
Yeah. But he's usually the one to bring up the idea of morality. Beverly brought up the idea of morality in this situation.
Yeah, but I mean, he was like, yeah, you're right. We should think about it, but why don't we don't have to think about it unless we have the option, is what he was saying. And from
this situation is a little bit more dire than Iborg, but then does it matter this context when you're talking about genocide?
Okay,
I would say no.
What I will say personally is that I did not come tonight prepared to have a simultaneously well thought out, well prepared, and hilarious conversation about the pros and cons of genocide.
Neither.
Maybe you can do a bonus episode on that if you like.
No, I don't want to do a bonus
It's
episode
got genocide.
on the pros and cons. Boy, that's not a minefield at all.
I'm just saying, I need a couple days lead time before I can come down strongly on one side of the
It's got ethnic cleansing.
Oh no. I want to end this joke. I want to end this joke right here.
It's got ethnic cleansing. Jesus Christ. All right. Any other major bits we got? I mean, there's a lot of odds and ends of this episode.
Well, I did have a few. If you wanted to play a game of guess the context based upon a short portion of the line,
I do.
Let's do it, dude.
My new favorite game. Let's do it.
Okay. Yeah. So here is question number 1. Some of these are easier than others.
Why are you spoiling us?
What?
You're spoiling us.
I am spoiling you. I thought you meant I spoiled the game.
Some of them are easier than others.
It just turns out that way. It's not an easy game to like.
But there's not in any particular order.
They're not in any particular order. Yeah, because
this could be the hardest one of the whole bunch.
The thing about making this game is I never know what's going to be a candidate until I see it, and then or hear it. And then
so
I'm
it's like pornography.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like pornography.
You know it when you see it.
Right. So for people who don't know, this game I play a small portion of the line, and then Jesse and Patrick have to guess the context surrounding it. Okay.
All right.
Question number 1.
Up in my head. Up in my head.
That's when he's talking to Picard. Jack is talking to Picard, and he's saying he hears voices.
Yes.
And I was watching the episode, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny if Jack, instead of being British with a British accent, if he was like from Tennessee?
Yeah.
He's like, I hear voices in my head.
He was like Trip Tucker.
No,
Texas?
that's like
Texas.
Trip Tucker's from Florida.
Yeah.
He's from Florida?
Captain, I hear voices in my head.
Why did I think he was
The
Texas?
Gulf.
Yeah,
It would
so-
work though. Tennessee, British. I mean, there's some similarities.
I just thought it would be extra funny if Picard, in addition to having to deal with a child he didn't know that existed, and that this child has some different lifestyle choices than Picard would prefer for his progeny. If in addition to that he was just like, my name's Jack,
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Jack
I
Crusher.
like hanging out with my mom. We go around the world and we
go where?
We go around the world. And we
You said
save
we go
people.
round world.
We get medical supplies, and we get the aliens all up in the. You just give.
We're going to get medical supplies.
Well, okay, all right. Like, no, maybe that would
That's
be.
not
a little
how people from Tennessee talk. I was
Mom
just.
and them.
I was talking like an old Warner Brothers cartoon.
Yes, you were. Like, okay. Did I get a point for that then?
And I don't even know how to begin to explain this to you, but it's like I can...
It's like I can hear
Up in my head.
up in my head.
Well, yeah, exactly. I like how he
Don't-
points to
don't
his
we
head.
all hear up in our head? 'Cause he didn't say
Yeah.
hear voices. He just said, it's like I can hear
That's
up
how I
in my
receive
head.
it as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I like how he points to his head when he
Yeah.
does it. Okay, here's question number 2.
Transporters.
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 Is that Jordy?
Yes.
Yes.
Transporters.
It's
Transporters.
when he's trying to transport his daughter out of the thing and it doesn't work, right?
I think he might be right.
Laura's taking over all major
Because Laura's
systems.
taking the
Security. Transporters.
Wait, I gotta start.
Transport-
I gotta start.
Security.
I gotta start over.
Transporters.
Hold on.
Laura's taking over all major systems. Security.
You know, Jordy,
Transporters.
Jordy
Hey,
has a
co-
problem. Jordy has a problem saying lore.
Okay,
He can't just be like lore. He's like lore. Lore. Yeah. Lore.
I gotta play it again because people keep interrupting.
People, you mean me?
Laura's taking over all major systems. Security.
What the fuck are you doing?
Did you edit that together? Was
No.
that a jump edit, or did
No,
you?
it's
did
because
you edit it, or
no,
was it in the TV show?
It was in the TV show because they switched scenes in the middle of it, and one of them
yes.
was starting out there.
One's on the audio
Yeah,
channel and
yeah.
one's on the business.
Okay, so
Gotcha.
here's the whole clip in its entirety. It's 9 seconds. Let's see if we can do this.
Laura's taking over all major systems. Security.
Transporters.
Why is Lord doing this?
Chaos. He loves the chaos. He loves the chaos.
Okay, so good job,
Do you think
guys.
he took replicators?
Transporters.
Transporters.
Okay, here's the next one.
All right.
I think you guys will get this one.
You're so old.
That one isn't that hard at all.
Yeah, I
That's-
mentioned
that's
that one
lore.
already.
Yeah, I don't even have to
Lord,
play the
they're
whole
all
clip. It's
old.
9 seconds. We can get back. Let's skip to the
Are
next
all
question.
your clips 9 seconds? Do you have like a tick about?
That
9
would
seconds?
explain why you're so old. Time has been very cruel to you.
And here's the problem, Admiral. You remember lore?
No hope for me.
The thing is
at the last second.
he's looked the same way for a very long time. He's just a little bit older and a little bit more frail. Like, you know, because he...
Oh, you're talking about Patrick Stewart? Or
Patrick
like
Stewart.
yeah.
We've always seen Patrick. I've always seen Patrick Stewart as somebody, you know, sort of bald and like, you know,
Somebody once said he was like 50 for like 30 years.
exactly,
Like from the age of like 21 to
like,
like, you know, 70 or
like
something.
if you've already sort of lost your hair as you grow older, that you don't have that change, so you don't look, you know, older. I don't know.
To answer your question, Patrick, I do not have a tick about 9 seconds. It just seemed that I think maybe I have a tick about the length of file I was copying, pasting. Maybe I was like, oh, it's exactly this many centimeters, and then it turns out that amount of
centimeters of audio file.
of audio file highlighting on the screen, or
like
something.
his
That's
voice,
dependent on the
sounds-
zoom level, isn't it?
Yeah, and the screen size, but it might, but I only do it at one, so
Okay.
in
His,
one
his
context.
voice sounds a little much more frail, but like, you know, he doesn't look any that much different.
Okay, so there's he definitely does look basically the same,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird.
He's got the same old Patrick Stewart look.
So there's 3 more questions. Let's zip through these.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
Perverted. Perverted.
That's Geordie as well. He has a perverted view of humanity.
A little bend, a little arch, a little antagonizing flair is required.
The first part he was
flair.
talking about his
Lore.
robot penis.
Yeah, I know.
okay.
Well, it's got a little bit.
A little bend, a little
let's-
arch.
A little bit of arch.
Let's get through the sound
A
file.
little bend,
Okay.
a little arch,
Okay.
a little antagonizing flair is required.
It's got a flair.
You're doing this on purpose.
What?
You're not supposed to talk during the sound file.
But I, mean,
I thought
we
that
can-
was it.
Yeah, we can hear it. What, is there something we're missing? that
no,
we're
it's
not
just
hearing?
so everyone can hear what's happening.
All right.
A little bend, a little arch, a little antagonizing flair is required.
Okay.
Lore has a perverted sense of what it means to be human.
Yes. All right.
Gonna antagonize me. It's for the audience's sake. I'm thinking about the audience.
All right, yes.
Okay, next one.
All right.
Kraken.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Kraken.
Kraken.
It's not the sea monster.
Kraken.
Any hints?
Yes, give us a hint.
You were talking about, like, I guess,
Phil McCracken.
British aphorisms. Is that the correct word, I guess?
Well, you keep talking and we'll let you know.
And that's what that word is.
Oh, Kraken? That's an Irish thing.
Oh, is it Irish? Shit, that's fucked up of me. I'm sorry. I apologize to everyone for that.
It's pretty fucked up.
It's my ignorance shining through. I didn't.
I mean,
it.
unless you're talking Northern Irish, then it's a little less fucked up.
I don't want. It's not cool to mix up that kind of stuff. Like, just, you know, I don't know. I'm ignorant, and I mix here, and I'm making assumptions, and I'm mixing it up, and that's fucked up.
Why don't you
of
play
me.
the full clip?
Okay, everyone, give up.
Well, I found myself a cracking little sweet.
I'll just
A Kraken little sweet.
Yeah, there's more.
Oh, well, he said it. He's British.
Let's see the rest
Well,
of this. Is the rest of this.
I hang out sometime if you. Well, no, it's fine. Totally fine.
It's when he's talking to Sydney about finding the place to.
Yeah. So
I'm
glad you brought this up.
when he's hitting on Sydney, basically.
I'm glad you brought this up because I think it's weird to hit on somebody in an elevator.
What's a turbo lift?
If you prefer make a move on or chatting up, whatever term you want to use,
the moves
I think in
on.
an elevator, it's
it's-
not the best place to hit on somebody.
Right, because they're trapped there.
It's
Yes,
a
it's
little-
a confined
it's-
space.
Yeah.
And yes, I know that in
That's a Me Too shit.
technical jargon, we would refer to these as a turbo lift, but we all know, all of us in the Star Trek community, that's an elevator.
Yeah, that goes sideways.
Yeah, you can call it a turbo.
It goes all sorts of directions. So yeah, I think that's weird too. But it seems like
I don't know. I was a little uncomfortable.
you don't want to be that forward about something like that.
Yeah.
You can't get away from physically.
I mean, on that,
Not that there was any risk that Jack would do anything, but it's the principle of like you want. It's like a social kind of like we want to represent this idea that I can get away from this scenario easily.
and perhaps it was my discomfort was accentuated by the fact that as we're finding out that Jack can apparently, and maybe he was finding this out at the moment too, he can apparently read people's thoughts.
Yeah, she's like, "Why'd you do that?"
As we're finding that out, he's hitting on her, but he's basically saying, I found a big room that we can fuck in.
Yeah.
Would you like to go fuck in this room that I
Right.
found?
Yep.
And that's uncomfortable in an elevator. I don't like that. Both for the character and frankly for the producers at this stage. It was also exacerbated perhaps by the fact that he's reading her mind and she's all like, be a little subtle about it, like touch my hand or something. And then he immediately touches her hand and she's like, what the fuck?
Right,
Yeah, right. You're
yeah.
reading my mind. What's going on there?
Yeah.
That's not cool.
And yeah. I mean, even if you read someo's mind, you shouldn't make a physical move for the first
just
time in an
confused
elevator.
Because if
It's weird, yeah.
Normal, if I'm watching that, it was almost coded as being like, here's a character you think you should be thinking is a creep, but I don't think that's what they want us to think. That was a minor little thing to throw.
Because I wouldn't think that he was a creep. Like
He doesn't seem like a creep. He seems like a charming, scoundrel.
He's a scoundrel. He's a scamp. He's got some issues.
But we are supposed to be like suspicious of this dude in a certain way, you know, because he's got these new powers.
Yeah.
and like
he's got some.
I mean, but are we
something's going
supposed to
on.
think he's like
something's going on with this guy.
a molester?
no. I think no. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. I don't think of
Is
him
he
as
Jack
a
the Ripper?
molester.
Do you think that's going to be the gag that he's Jack the
No, he's
Ripper
got-
reincarnated
we
because they
all-
did that on TOS, Wolf in the Fold?
we all know from like comic books.
Do you think this is a Wolf in the Fold situation?
We all know from comic books and things like that like someone can be good, but when they have a bunch of power, they can turn.
I've
be
never read a
bad.
comic book.
You've heard.
What are these
You've
things
heard
you're
people
saying?
reference them. Okay,
A comic book.
I like Calvin and Hobbes.
You've heard people reference them. You know what I'm talking about.
Garfield eats the world.
You know what I'm talking about.
Garfield eats the world.
When someone has a lot of power corrupts, all that stuff, you know. So like maybe they are trying to be like, oh, we gotta watch Jack's turning, or he's turning. But of course, when he asked that question about going into her room, that was pre-power situation.
Yes.
So there was no excuse for that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just threw me off a little bit. But that does remind me that, we only touched briefly on that scene with Jack and the whole puppeteering Sydney, which, first of all, that's I know he saved her life, but again, I'm really curious what's going on here because it was an awkward situation in the elevator, and then in order to save her life, he basically takes bodily control over her.
Her eyes turn red just like his did.
Which depending on how they play, I don't know, it could be potentially uncomfortable. On the other hand,
she was definitely freaked out.
She
by
was
that.
yeah,
She was like, "What?"
On the other hand, it is a cool power, and I was
It
impressed.
was a cool scene.
I was impressed with how they choreographed it and all that.
Yeah.
That looked pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it
was
opened
good.
up some ideas where just sort of like stuff you hadn't really thought about in Star Trek before, other than that episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine where Quark has to wear the neural thing to fight some Klingon to save his honor. And so like Worf attaches to him and does the whole Cyrano Bergerac thing, except for Klingon fighting.
Yeah, or the movie Real Steel with Hugh Jackman.
Does Hugh Jackman puppeteer somebody from afar?
I just talked about this not 30 minutes ago. I was talking about the movie.
Oh, that's right. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of you talking about
I
Real
explained
Steel.
it. Play the tape back. But I was talking about it specifically what I'm about to say again, which was where it was about a fighting boxing ring where the robots box, but the humans stand on the side.
They're
And
like Rock'em Sock'em robots.
You know,
no, it's not like Rock'em Sock'em robots. It's like they puppet them with their body. The same fucking thing we're talking about.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm more than a little concerned that I have zero recollection of you bringing that up.
No, he totally was talking about this.
I believe
know,
you.
yeah.
I'm concerned.
I'm with it. I'm with it, dude. I'm with it.
You know when you jump inside of somebody's body and they're of the opposite sex, you know what their genitals feel like.
All right.
I know what genitals feel like.
But like their genitals.
I know what their genitals
You've
feel
expressed the thought that everyone's has from at least the time of adolescence.
Yep, probably earlier. So this is the last one, okay?
She did.
Okay.
She did.
You give up?
Do you have a clue?
She did.
I don't remember which one this is from.
Oh no, dude. Disqualified. That's
Did you not
disqualified.
write a note on that?
No, I don't
think that's an automatic win for us.
Yeah,
we get all the points.
yeah, I should be able to give you a hint. Oh yeah, I got it.
You got it?
It was when Geordi. Oh, wait, that was Geordi.
Okay.
And it had to do with there's no other. There was when this Discovery style sad music was playing at the last. Remember there was the last 15 minutes they were playing that sad music.
Yeah.
And that was like a Discovery Adventure sad music Discovery show.
You mean
like
Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah. It was kind of like felt like it was from Discovery.
Yeah.
But it was and
see that.
and Geordi was all like, I'm just gonna give you the context. Fuck. It's
I thought that's what you were doing.
no, I was giving you a hint.
Oh.
Oh well, this is the context.
Yeah, we're not going to get it.
Matt.
Life rarely gives you second chances to say what you should. Okay? Data, you made me better.
Yeah.
You did.
You did.
You made me a better.
You did.
I'm gonna start over.
Yeah.
Life rarely gives you second
No,
chances.
stop. No talking.
No, I get it.
Life rarely gives you second chances to say what you should. Okay? Data, you made me better. You did. You made me a
Okay,
better
you can talk
man,
now. It's
a
okay.
better father, a better friend.
Yeah.
Great scene.
Yep.
Yeah, that was really good.
Blew me out of the water,
Yeah.
to use a colloquial term.
It was kind of a confusing line, but it made sense when he was all talking about like when you died, it broke me in two, and your memory brought me back together. I mean, that's pretty cool.
I liked it because you need to know the Star Trek
Yeah.
to get the line. Really.
It was a cool line. It was mildly confusing at first, but I was like, I kind of get it. Yeah. It's because it's like, well, you broke me, but then you fixed me, and it's
the memory
not
of
that.
you
It's
fixed
not.
me.
Yeah. It's not that confusing. I'm just. Well,
No, it is. I mean, it's confusing outside of the context of understanding the history that they have, and they were able to convey it. I think even somebody who's never seen Star Trek before would be able to infer at least a good amount of their history. Yeah,
And they put some milk into a wormhole and
what?
What are you talking about, man?
what was that? All this thing. It was like a list of like Data and Geordi's like secrets or something. And, like
Was this a Twitter thing or a comic
It was
strip?
something on. Yeah, it was something on the.
You know what it was?
Like,
I think it was one of Mike McMahon's TNG season 8 plot lines. I remember that.
And one of them, they put some milk in a black hole, and they always get nervous every time they smell like spoiled milk in space or something.
Because they think it's coming from the womb.
All right.
I'm
We would be remiss if we didn't at least briefly touch on the fact that Picard and Beverly were totally ready to just murder their prisoner.
Oh yeah. Oh wait.
Yeah.
Check
That's
this.
like sort of an important part of the
They
episode.
kept talking themselves down because
And-
they were like, "Well, like, we got a phaser room."
And I actually have the sound. I'll give it back. I'll throw it back to you in a sec. I have the sound of them missing the fucking prisoner,
Yeah.
slurping away like 20 times. Like it's going up in the tube, and Picard is very obviously like aiming to the leak. Like can't even get it in the tube.
What,
like
is
when
he
he's
a
shooting.
fucking stormtrooper?
Yeah, I know, right?
I was also a little confused and frustrated because presumably they were going to lower the force field to shoot her. So something similar would have happened. Now, of course, obviously, if they were going to do it in a controlled fashion,
they'd
as
be more
opposed
ready,
to
I guess.
Lore dropping all of them randomly, yeah, I understand that. It still works.
But
it's like, why are you missing all of us then? Come on.
I mean, what do you guys think about like when she was talking about the Hippocratic Oath and being like, I'm going to break the Hippocratic Oath now or something or whatever?
Well, because it's my son.
Yeah. Do you think that was cool or not cool? Oh shit! Sorry.
It's not a matter of thinking it's cool or not. I think it's an interesting development, an interesting plot development, because again, it's a philosophical question. It's like what are the criteria you have for your principles, and what are the criteria you have to go against your principles or revisit your principles is perhaps a fair way to look at it.
Jesse and/or Patrick, how does this compare to the beginning when people remember with the first episode when Beverly was zapping people, and then the internet, some people on the internet were complaining that was like against Beverly's thing that
philosophy.
Yeah, I think there's a better word for it, and I
her do no harm philosophy.
Yeah,
well, and which we argued at the time, and a lot of other people noted.
MO maybe.
Beverly, Dr. Crusher. Yes, of course, has always tried to avoid harm at all costs, but that sometimes that includes having to use violence in order to prevent the harm. There's always that debate. That's a ages-old debate, right?
Now, I wonder if you guys think that this is different. I say maybe it is because this was more execution style. They were planning it out more.
That's where I think we're supposed to understand and think about and question our own opinions on whether or not it's okay to murder a prisoner in the context. And it's very important that the context that Picard and Beverly make the decision, in that context, they still perceive that they have full control over the ship and the situation. This is not a running and gunning situation where everything's falling to shit and they're just like, we got to get rid of her now because there's a chance she could escape. Picard started the conversation stating outright, there's no way you're going to escape. Your best bet is just to let us know, let us know what we want to know. So they're making that decision expressly to murder a prisoner who they think they have full control over, because they both, there's a little bit of bloodlust, I'm sure, and revenge, or pre-revenge, right? Because they're like, this person is trying to fuck up my child. And from a parental perspective, of course, there's a lot to understand about that, but it's from a Starfleet, from a
She's
doctor,
already caused a lot of trouble,
physician perspective. That's there's a lot of stuff in play there, and it'll be interesting to see how they follow up on that, because they made the decision, but were not forced to go through with it as it happened. Now they tried to shoot at her, but at that point she's escaping. So now it's like it's as if the lore actually gave them a justification for shooting at her, and then then they missed.
Okay, so compromise prefix code is 18307. That's the kind of code that you send out when a ship is in distress and you know that the enemy can read it, but you're letting people know where you are. Now, it gives the ship its location when it sends it out. I'm guessing it also gives the location of the ship it's sending it to. That's the impression I got. Like it's compromising both.
Probably.
But
I wasn't.
But I guess
it was a weird line.
The deal was that
it wouldn't make sense though, because if you're not accepting it, then why would it compromise?
They were
you?
talking about like trying
they would know where they're sending
to talk to Starfleet about Riker being imprisoned by Starfleet, being in custody of Starfleet, and they couldn't find any proof of it, and then they were like, oh well, he's on the Shrike.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if like both if they were talking about how it compromises the location of the ship, and I didn't know if it
my
meant,
my understanding from my limited experience with spycraft. What you were about to say something authoritative, Dan.
Well, I was just gonna say I think it gave away both positions because it was unencrypted, so it knew where it was sending it and coming from. But then you talked about spycraft, and that immediately grabbed my attention.
Yes,
I don't know what you're talking about.
My limited understanding of spycraft.
Oh, I thought it was like a game or something. You're talking about spycraft in general.
I'm speaking about
the game is Mind.
I thought there was some game
spycraft. You're the game guy. I'm the rest of the world guy.
Oh, fuck you.
Oh, damn, dude.
No,
Don't
I meant from reading Hunt for Red
don't
October.
categorize me, man.
I meant from reading Hunt for Red October.
You're
and
labeling me.
Similar stories.
Don't label me.
I am. What I was referring to is this is not a new idea. The idea of if you are an officer who is captured, that you could reveal some information or communicate some information that is understood to be you're giving information to your captors. Your captors will utilize that information and it will appear to be real, but that you've prearranged certain versions of that information so that if it gets out, you're sending a message, because it's like, okay, I'm modifying it in this prearranged way, and that's what I was assuming. That is.
Okay, I think I'm basically with you. My whole thing is I was obsessed over whether or not the receivers' positions are given away. I also
found it kind of confusing because it was all about, the Shrike does find them, but of course that's after they set up the whole bait thing. I'm also curious, given the length of this episode and how much ADR there was, I'm wondering if there's a chunk missing that they decided to edit out to tighten up the episode, because it goes from Picard saying like, what if we did have an advantage, to just the ship is floating and the Shrike shows up. Well, it felt to me pacing wise like there was like 3 or 4 minutes in between them of the preparation that we didn't see.
That's why I was mentioning earlier about I could only think that
about Real Steel.
No, it was about the VSV. What was it? The
recording?
The Vulcan.
The recording from the
it was a subspace signal
from the VSS Taplana. And that's why I was like, I guess
the USS Tilapia.
I guess that they were saying like, was it the USS or VSS?
The USS Tilapia.
VSS, because the Vulcans still have their own separate ships.
Yeah, so I that's why I was wondering if it had to do with that junk pile.
I don't think Vulcans eat tilapia.
I was wondering if it had to do with that junk pile, and Patrick, like, I think, yeah, you're right, because it was confusing. It felt like there was something missing from there.
Good God.
The 40 minutes in, when the shapeshifters took over the bridge, one of them gave a shoulder bump to one of the officers and he froze in place. I don't know if you noticed that, but right when they're taking over, he bumps and even a sound happens. There's a sound, it goes like thunk, and the guy freezes in place. I don't know what the fuck was going on there.
Did you hear that little, like, that sound? I wish I recorded it. There's a sound that's like from Star Trek 2 when they're using it. It's like a beeping radar type sound. When they're looking for Vadic and her person. I think it's after they figured out the chemical that's in their body or whatever.
Thelonium 847.
Yeah, but listen for that sound. There's a sound from like the TOS from Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, that era.
I didn't notice that.
I can't mimic it.
Vadic is all massaging her left hand. That's her face hand.
Yes, that is her face hand.
There were two.
Which hand is your face hand?
Oh, wouldn't you like to know? There are two. They'd say the title twice in this episode.
Dominion.
They do.
Dominion.
I have the context.
I think
like the virus used against them in the Dominion War. True, my understanding recognizes the travesty of the Dominion War.
Dominion. All right. Any last little bits, because we got to close things down here.
Dominion.
I'm looking forward to next week. This is a gripping tale.
Totally.
I know we discussed a few harped on a few little bits of nonsense here, but really this was a fantastic episode.
The suspense never stops. It just kind of,
Amanda Plummer's fantastic. I'm glad we'll get more of her.
Tick-tock, tick-tock, goes the ancient clock.
I know. It's totally whack.
It's campy, but I mean, Star Trek is supposed to be campy. That's why I like it.
Yeah.
And having these brilliant actors act all this out is
He's right there.
Great.
Right there.
And I think the writers are doing a great job. So keep it up. It's been a delightful time this whole season to watch this show. And I'm both sad that there's only 3 episodes left, but I'm also really excited to get to that conclusion and
there are going to be some serious episodes.
Yeah, find out how everything wraps up and where it goes from here. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Next week is called Surrender. That's the name of the episode, season 3, episode 8. So we will be discussing that episode of Star Trek Picard. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram and all that other stuff. At It's Got Star Trek, Mastodon, Twitter, Facebook, all that business. YouTube.
Right there.
Yes, YouTube. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. The website is www.isgotstartrek.com.
My name is Dan Globus.
We're on all the services, Apple Podcasts, Apple iTunes, Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, all that business. You'll
Name
find
one.
us. I just did, Dan. I named all of them.
I am fearful of the same thing.
Google Podcasts.
We'll try.
All right. So with that, we wish you a lovely week, rest of the week until more Star Trek. It's coming up soon. So we'll talk to you around this time next week. Bye-bye.
God damn it, Lord!
So has Lore always been this arch?
Did the tree move, or did the apple just fall far from it?